But what I'm really interested in, Mankwe, is to hear a little bit more about this, but particularly this interest about this how, so, you know, Shalini outlined really well how arts as an organizing tool is used. So give us some more examples of that and talk more about this, because I think this is a really interesting piece. And then there's another direction I want to go. And I just
Sitting underneath the ironwood tree, watching Dolce eat leaves. Sitting underneath the ironwood tree, watching Dolce eat leaves. I'm praying for rain, rain, rain. I'm praying for rain, rain, rain. I'm praying for rain, rain, rain. 'Cause I got all else that I need. So this is a song that I wrote when I was not being an artist. At a time when I would dramatically change my relationship to the earth. And part of where the arts can be useful is in helping people change their relationship with the earth, to change how they view it and their connection to become part of it again. Because most of our Western society encourages us to believe that we have to master the earth, that if we don't do something with it, then we are not being either responsible, or we are not being developed, or we are not being civilized. So some of where I like to challenge that has to do with the space that we take up and how we think of it's very old, how we think of our relations, those beings that we are in relationship with. So I wrote that song. It's a rain song. It was during 10 years ago during a drought in upstate New York when I was an apprentice on a goat farm, where I learned about the stories and the healing properties of common plants that most people think of as weeds. Here, you want to get rid they teach you to try and get rid of dandelions and get rid of burdocks and get rid of creeping charlies. And how do we get rid of them? We get rid of them by poisoning ourselves and by poisoning the earth. But once I learned how to be useful, how to have relationship with these plants, it gave me a whole different idea, a whole different interaction with those plants. And with the earth generally. My teacher there, Susan Weed, was the first person who ever really walked the talk for me, at least in my life, of believing that all life is created equal. We are all killers. And we are all blessed. And so I wrote that and many other songs while I was going through as part of my relationship with the goats, with the plants. Part of that relationship was sitting and looking at dandelions. Dandelion was my plant to study. And I had to not read a book about it. We were supposed to interact with it. So we had to sit and watch it silently sometimes. Draw it. Look at it in its different manifestations as it grew. Make things out of it. The volunteers, as you would call the things that other people call weeds, are plentiful, and they're common, they're around, so we can have relationship with, which does not mean that you get rid of, which does not mean that you use them unconsciously. But the art and the creativity and the relationship can bring consciousness to how you walk in everyday life on this blessed place that we've been gifted with. Yeah, so that's a very small, arty, but non-inside of arts example.
So I understand how that was transformative for you. So in some of this work that Shalini had referenced, one of the jobs, at least one of the ways that I think about organizing in a very simple way, is it's about bringing people together, learning together, and then acting together. So as I heard Shalini talk about how important it is as people are learning either through popular education or the words that we use, but really it's about how do we learn this different sense of relationship to each other. So in some of the work, and I know some of your organizing work, how do you incorporate some of the mediums we'll call art, but whatever it is, into your work?
First is being part of a really wide community that has already been doing this work like this for a long time, and we're it happens around the country, definitely, but the Twin Cities has a long history of inviting both performance as part of events, but then inviting practice inside of class, inside of workshop, inside of interaction, organizing. You can call it, I think every moment is organizing if you are seeing it as that. So organizing is about awakening. So challenging, one simple way is to challenge people to see their daily life differently, to hear the songs of the world. So this is one of the things that I like to do with people, which to me is part of organizing as well, which is the first part to me, which is the engagement with your own self. Because we can make issues from the outside, but then once the issue is gone, then sort of what are you left with? So the reason I start with personal engagement is because that's what keeps you going, keeps you there. So some of it, for me, I invite people to come outside and we just take a walk. And we walk and we listen to the songs of the world around us. And if you think about each being, birds, even cars, even machinery, even the white noise that exists, there's a song, there is a phrasing, there is a pitch, there is a tempo, there is a decision about regularity or not, there is a loud or soft. So part of it has to do with, even in meetings, at least this is what I like to do in some meetings, is that you encourage people to bring their creative self, even if they don't call themselves an artist, into the room in different ways. So if we are asset mapping who we have in the room, we can do a practice called exquisite corks, where we take pieces of paper, we fold them over into threes. One person draws the head and passes it on to another person. You're not supposed to see what the other person did. Next person passes and so everyone draws a head, everyone draws a body, everyone draws legs. But you don't draw any of them in the same place. So you end up with these creatures, right? And then you can work with those creatures to talk about, and Malia and I do this together I've done it several times at the women's prison. So she's holding up one of the examples of
Maybe you want to pass it around as we go around.
Some of it has to do with getting people out of the one part of the mind and getting them into another part of the mind. Because encouraging organizers to work with their creative selves, to work with their creative thinking, to think like an artist, to use the habits of mind of an artist, which is that you take all the things that you think you knew and you throw them out sometimes. Or if you decide you want to go in with them, then you hold them very loosely, improvisationally, so that you have room for something new to emerge. And I say that this is a very deep and a wonderful community for this right now because it's happening all over the place. We have people in the room who have been doing this work for much longer than I have. Ricardo is here, Louis is here. And it's tapping into the spirit, the imagination of people and connecting. And then these experiences that we have together become the glue as well that keeps us together a little tighter than if we're just about talking. So, I would like to encourage people to take a moment to explore with their arms or their hands, to explore their environment. Now, a lot of times when you think about the air as being nothing, right? You know, you can't see it. Maybe you can smell something that's going through it, but the energy is moving throughout. If I like to imagine, especially in performance, that I'm moving through water or moving through jelly or moving through something because it reminds me of the energy that I have and the force with which I can transfer that energy to someone else. It also can get us out of feeling like there's a normal way to be. In order to be in a meeting, I have to sit here like this. Or in order to be normal, I have to, you know, there are so many unspoken rules about what's regular that we right now have to be busting out in as many little ways as possible to find out what's next, right? Because nobody's actually happy in what we have right now, and we're killing the home that we have. So we have to shake it out a little bit, and that's what creativity can be very useful for. So back to this mapping, we make these exquisite corpses, and then people choose it, and they see those, and then we ask them to choose one of them. And you can either take it to choose that as being a likeness of yourself-ish, or that it's another being who is your avatar at the moment. And you endow that person with that avatar with your own gifts and talents. Not just how many words you can type a minute, or where you went to school, or what exactly your job experience is, but also your creative and spiritual and personal gifts to be able to translate to remind yourself about how much wealth and how much skill you actually have. So for me, the creativity has to do with starting out to like open up and remind people about how powerful and how useful and how innovative they actually are, and how much we need all of those skills in order to move from where we are to the next moment. Is that?
That helps a lot. And maybe,
So,
yeah,
also as you go,
sorry.
if you feel like, if your arm wants to get up and do like this, if you need to get up and stretch or something like that, I will encourage you to do that in this space. Normal is an illusion anyway. So, as your body is your first environment, is your environment too on the inside. Treat this as well, and pay attention to all of this as well, in how you are navigating where you are in the moment.
You wanted to say something, Shalini? Then
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to, one thing Mankwe was talking about habits. And I think, we all need to start kind of acknowledging how we've been pre-programmed, like even those of us who have been doing a political education or, for a long time, and have been on that journey, it's a fact that we live in the United States, and we're surrounded by a lot of this environment that reinforces a dominant culture, and that is I'll give an example. So I have a 2-year-old son, and at this age already, he knows taxonomy of trucks and cars, but to actually find books that have taxonomy of different birds and the earth. Thomas the Train, who I hate, is a 2-year-old's favorite thing. But if you actually look at the stories, they're very colonial, very about industrialization, about trains, about trade. But this is what 2-year-olds are learning about now. And so at such a young age, there's already sort of world views forming about what's important, how does the world function, what are the things we care about. Efficiency, the best thing that Thomas can do is make a delivery on time. But this is 80% of the 2-year-olds in this country are reading this, and so it starts at a very young age. So I think it's, think of the age in this room, right? Over the years, we really have to be conscious about what habits we're forming. And there's a really interesting project being started by Anicca Arts called Inhabit, where they're starting to question these habits. And they're doing a performance, part of the Northern Sparks, that Festival, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
In June, that's actually going to be outdoors and for 9 hours overnight. And so we've been working with them on one of their dots. I'm learning all this language around that is looking at sort of the habits around environmental issues and how do we start to deconstruct that. It just sort of occurred to me that that's one of the sort of key things that I think all of us need to start thinking about.
Well, and I want to come back to that because I think that's a really important piece. This idea of what we've been hearing as a consistent theme through this movement building series is how this narrative around scarcity is so pervasive and so dominant and so destructive to either the creativity or the opportunities that we can have for either relationships, either within organizations, within ourselves. It's just all pervasive. But I wanted to go back to this piece because I wanted to just talk about this idea of, so we've talked about organizing and the work of arts as a strategy or as a tool within that. I just want to finish the loop a little bit on, so how does that actually become transformative? In your perspective, you're kind of orchestrating these. How does it become transformative for individuals to be participating in those? Is that?
Yeah. Well, I what I've seen in myself and in other people I've talked with as integrated arts. I mean, arts has been a part of my life. My mother's an artist, and so it's been a part of my life since I was young. But it's, I think, actually tapping into something that has, through habit or through sort of societal conditioning, been separated out of us, that actually, that even though we may, how do I say this, that we're all, in terms of, so when I went back to India recently, song and dance is integrated into life, right? And so it's, the words even, the language, was based on, like the word for waterfall is based on what a waterfall sounds like, Jharna. And so the word for bird is based on what a bird sounds like, Chiriya. And so it's the language, we were meeting with some Lakota people, they were, reminding me that there's languages that are sacred languages. And so even speaking that, right, through spoken word or through what language you use and how you use it can connect you back to the earth. So that transformation has occurred. But then also not separating out these elements onto stage or as if something that needs to happen outside of what you do in your daily life. So I think it transforms people. It makes you feel more whole and connected to the earth. And then when you start, I think that's from an individual kind of personal level, but then when it is the community or a group of people that are experiencing that, it moves towards action, right?
Well, I think that team building, and this goes back to a conversation Ricardo and I had as well about sometimes the differences between organizing in the North and organizing in the South. Where in the South they understand that you have to be able to cook and sing to be an organizer as well. Because the process of singing, the process of bringing all that vibration through your body is a transformative process. Shakes your energy, resets your energy, builds your energy. And then when you do it with people, with a group of people, it becomes even more because all that energy is multiplied by moving in the same place with each other. It develops your camaraderie much faster as well than just talking at each other. And there's also a reading that I found in a book called The Healing Wisdom of the Earth by an author named Malidoma Somé. He talked about this idea, and this is getting to your idea, this thing of scarcity and abundance. The idea of abundance and he is from, I believe, Mali and the Dogon tribe in Mali. And so you're saying that their indigenous idea of abundance had to do with a feeling of fullness. It had nothing to do with material possession. It had nothing to do with going somewhere else to do something, to come back, and or to buy something to then feel full, or to eat and then feel full. The feeling of fullness was the beginning and continued through the work that you do together. Because organizing is team building. And how do you maintain a team? And how do you maintain focus? And how do you stay with each other? And how do you find out who does what well and who's able to do what well right now versus before? So the idea of work and collective work as being a process of building these feelings of abundance, and that part of singing or part of drawing or part of putting the creative process inside of it has to do with maintaining that feeling through the work. And then afterwards, the work. It's not necessarily about, as you said, about efficiency. It's not who's going to get it done fastest. The fastest is not the point. The point is to raise the energy of the people. To raise the energy of the people, which is also really connected with raising the energy and blessing the energy of the earth. So I guess that's one other, and I believe that we're in a critical place where we have to be turning these ideas of what is scarce and what is abundant on their heads. We talk a lot about the unemployment right now, but unemployed people have a wealth of time, right? With which so much can be done. So many skills can be learned. So many connections can be made. So much impact. But we have the idea that wealth is only here. Just like poverty. There are so many different kinds of poverty. There's spiritual poverty. There's relational poverty. Often people who have the most are also afraid of losing it the most. You look at who Michael Jackson died around. Only people who he was paying to be around him. That is poverty. That is a version of poverty.